Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. We are back with our super art supply of the week. You're gonna help me out with it, Calla?
It's a warrior. It's a fighter. It's
Watercolor Warrior. We have Watercolor Warrior, our watercolor painting superhero extraordinaire this week.
like my paintbrush.
And we're excited to do painting with you. So, for everybody, including parents, if you don't have watercolors, there are a couple of different things that can work for a lot of these projects.
You can use this.
Hang on, Cal. Tempera paint will work just fine for a lot of these projects if you water it down. You could also use for some of them food coloring. Again, water it down, so just add a few drops of food coloring to water because, excuse me, love, a lot of what we're doing is watercolor washes, which is where we're diluting the watercolor with water anyway. So we wanted to make things. Hey Cal, I'm gonna work on the lesson. I want you to sit and help me. I will let you know when I need some help. Okay? So I can put some ratios and stuff in the comments so that you, if you don't have a watercolor palette at home, and we just have like the basic Prang is the brand that I like the best, but they're honestly almost the most common watercolor palettes that you would find both online if you're ordering or what your kids might use at school. So you could order those if you wanted. They're pretty affordable, and you'll need a brush and you'll need some container. We use a little old yogurt container. I honestly only buy those wee yogurts because I am obsessed with these glasses that we use for a lot of our artwork. So those are great. Mommy, and today we need paper. You can do it with me when we're ready. You need watercolor paper if you have it. If you don't have it, I'm going to be using cardstock so you can see the difference. The biggest difference I find is that cardstock paper is a little thinner than watercolor, so it might curl on the edges a little bit. If you lay it flat to dry, it'll be fine. It'll still work just fine. So, and the other three things you need today for our project today: some sort of tape, like masking tape. Painter's tape actually works the best, or art tape. Washi tape might work, but it peels up so easily that I don't know if it'll hold up to us painting over it. But you're welcome to experiment with it. And then you also need a little bit of rubbing alcohol and some salt. These are going to come out at the end, and I have 2 small bowls to put them in because you only need a really small amount of both. And then the kiddos can kind of go to town with them without you having to worry about pouring and all of that. Calla's going to help me pour a little bit into the bowls in a little while.
And also you need some water in whatever cup you have.
Yes, in whatever cup you have. So today we are going to learn a little bit about the basics of watercolor. And as you can see, my camera's a little different because I'm trying to angle it down. It would be hard for me to paint with watercolor on the easel. So I'm going to kind of lean forward while I'm chatting, and then hopefully you can see my page when we're working. Today we're going to create some word arts. So I would like you to choose a word that makes you really happy. It could be a thing, a naming word. Or it could be an emotion word. Or
it could be your name.
Or it could be your name or the name of someone or something that you love. Absolutely. I chose an emotion word. I chose joy because that is something it makes me really happy to think about, and it's something that I try to focus on. So that's what I did for my example. And we're going to learn how to create these watercolor washes around your tape word. And a watercolor wash is when you take a watercolor or any paint that you're using and you water it down with a little extra water. It makes it thinner and lighter colored. And then we're going to use our salt and our rubbing alcohol to make some of the cool textures that you see if I hold this up close for you. See how there's like splotchy areas? And it looks kind of like sparkly, like stars in some areas. So I'm going to teach you how to do that today. So first things first, you need your tape, and you need to choose a word. So Calla, what are you going to choose for a word?
Bunny.
You going to do bunny? Like after your lovey, your stuffy that you love so much? Sweet. All right. So we have really thick painter's tape, so I'm actually going to stick some pieces here to the table and cut it in half.
Mama, but how do I write bunny?
So we're going to do it with tape.
But how do I taste bunny?
Well, we need to figure out how to make the shape of all the letters. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to leave some tape here for us. I probably could have done this beforehand. I got to get my head wrapped around prepping a little bit, I think, for some of these. Okay. So, well,
how do I take bunny?
We're going to start at one side of the page. I haven't even decided my word. I think I'm going to do...
Calla?
You do make me very happy. Trying to think of a word that's kind of short and sweet. I probably should have saved joy for this. I think I'm going to do love. Okay. You can rip your tape with your hand if that's easier.
How do I tape Bunny's name?
Bunny. What letter sound does bunny start
with? Is it a down line or up line?
Do you remember what a B looks like?
Upside down line? Is it upside down but or just going down?
Watch my finger. B. Hang on, bubs. So we're using our tape to build our letters. You can see I'm starting to build the word love. You may use this. So this might be something moms and dads can help with if you need to cut your tape. If you have like regular size, like say 1 inch wide masking tape, you're probably fine to just use that depending on the length of the word. Okay, what's the next letter sound in bunny? B.
What did a look like?
What do you think?
I don't know. I don't know what a is like. Once I get mine done, then I can really focus on helping you with yours, okay? Does that work? So I can catch up?
Yeah, can I have that piece? And I'll cut you some new pieces, okay? I'm kind of piecing mine together. I am not feeling like I need to be really particular about the edges.
What is that?
It's going to be an eh when I'm all done with it. Okay. You can see my word. Love. Awesome. I'm excited about that.
Bunny makes me so happy. If I don't have Bunny overnight, I won't be able to fall asleep.
Yeah, so Bunny is Calla's lovey. I think you have met Bunny in some of our previous videos. He goes all over the house with us frequently.
Can I please go show them and find him? I know he's in my room.
Maybe at the end. Yeah, once you're done.
Actually, he's in the fort.
He's in the fort in the dining room. Yeah, you can go up and get him. Can I help you a bit with your words so we can kind of cruise along since we're doing a video right now?
Yes.
Okay.
And then at the end, I'll show him.
Okay. So, bunny. Can I show you the shape with my finger?
Like this?
Yep. I would make it a little closer to the B only because we have just this limited space here.
Mama, now, what's it?
Okay, and you make a bottom.
This,
I'm gonna
okay.
pull this back this way, my friend.
Is it okay?
Watch my finger again.
Just go up.
I think the easiest way to do it is actually going to be with this. And then it has another side, just like the first one on the opposite. Like that. Okay? And then We have been working on our letter sounds, if you can't tell.
Because I'm homeschooling.
And we're homeschooling. Alright, I'm going to start this one here. Right there. actually think we're going to break that one in half, only because, again, we're going to start running out of room a little bit. So, all right. Like this, and like this, and I'm going to cut a few more pieces, and then we'll be good to go. All right, my friends.
And then also, you guys, Bunny. Actually, I'm going to get Bunny, okay?
Oh. I'm going to try this week to find some time to play around with my videos so I can maybe figure out how to fast forward through some of these parts where we are getting things set up where you don't necessarily need to be with us the whole time. So I appreciate you bearing with me in the meantime. And with Calla, who really does love to help. And we enjoy doing these together. It's been really nice to have that time. So, all right, we've got our words love and bunny. We're all set with our scissors. We're all set with our tape. And while Calla goes to get Bunny, we're going to decide, right, Bunny and love, what colors we're going to use. So I have my cloth as well, my craft cloth. And some brushes for Calla. All right, we're gonna open up our watercolors. We have our glass of water, our little cup of water. I keep my cloth handy, and I'm gonna decide on 2 or 3 colors to use today. If you do too many colors, especially because we're doing watercolor washes where there's lots of water involved, then the colors could get kind of mucky. If you don't mind that, go for it. But I really like to be able to see my colors, so that's why I only choose 2 or 3. So I think I'm going to choose red, and I'm adding some water to my red watercolor paint in my tray. And then I'd like some yellow. I'm going to swirl it around until my yellow has plenty of water in there. Okay.
Actually, Mom.
Yeah, honey?
He may be downstairs.
He might be downstairs. Well, that would not be very surprising.
Downstairs.
All right. Well, I'm going to start the painting part. I helped you finish your word. And you can decide if you want to join in at whatever point you'd like. All right. So we are going to get our brush really wet and pick our first color. I got my 3 colors in my tray wet, so I added quite a bit of water to my red, orange, and yellow. Now I'm going to get my brush really wet and just dip it in the red. I'm going to start with red. And I'm going to pick somewhere to start on the page and just create a section of red. And now I'm going to get my brush really wet again and add more water to the red that's already on my page.
I can't find Bunny.
All right, that's all right.
I don't have this.
And now I'm going to do this in a few places on my page. I'm going to pick up some red paint with a lot of water on my brush. And I'm going to spread it around in an area of my page. And I'm going to add some more water on top so it stays really wet. Okay? And if I see other sections that I've already worked on starting to dry, I'm going to go back in and add more water. So I started with a bunch of water inside my paint in my paint palette in my tray. I used a really wet brush to pick up some paint and put it on my page. And then after I put it on my page, I got a really wet brush and went over the paint on my page with even more water. So it's almost like small puddles all over my page. So now I've done 3 sections of red. And as you can see, they're still really wet. And that's what I would like them to be, really wet. And now I'm going to do some sections of orange. Again, I take a really wet brush and put it into my orange paint.
Look what colors I'm mixing up red
And once
purple.
I fill in, I see that, once I fill in a whole section, and this includes in between all my taped letters. I want to make sure I get inside of them if they have inside areas all the way around the edges. I'm going to add some extra water so my paint is still really wet. I'm going to pick another orange section. And I'm working pretty quickly here because I want my paint all over my page to stay as wet as I can keep it, because we want to add our cool materials at the end that are going to make those fun textures inside of our paint. All right, so I'm going back in with water on top of some of my painted areas. I'm even going back on my red, my first color, with some water.
Bunny must be sad that he's missing this.
He must be. Oh, poor Bunny. We'll get to show him later. All right, so now I'm going to do my last color, my yellow. Ooh. Honestly, it's a little gunky, but that's okay. There was a little bit of a green or blue in my yellow, so it's a little funky. We're going to roll with it here. I'm going to add some water. I'm going to make sure all around my tape letters have wet paint. Fill that all in. I'm not going all the way to the edge of my page today. I kind of like how it looks with some space, white space around the edge of my colors, but you can certainly go all the way to the edge if you would like. All right, I'm going back in now. My whole page, all around all my letters, has paint. I'm going back in now with water to make sure all the areas are pretty wet. So I'm making my page pretty wet today. I'm gonna hold it up. Hopefully it's not gonna drip too much. There we go. It's okay if it does drip. That kind of looks cool, doesn't it? It's another way that you can make it look neat. All right, so my page is the whole page is pretty wet. So now I'm gonna take my little bowls. Now, I normally would have filled these before, but I have my little friend Quinn running around and I didn't want her to get a hold of them while we were trying to work. So I'm gonna add now just a tiny bit of rubbing alcohol, the littlest bit. It's like less than a teaspoon in there, into one of my containers, and then a little bit, again, like a teaspoon or less of salt, probably a little more with the salt than the rubbing alcohol, because you gotta be able to pick it up. And now I am gonna take a pinch of salt to start, and I'm gonna drop it onto my page somewhere where I see that it's really wet. And you'll see that the salt starts to absorb the water and look kind of sparkly on your page. You see? I hope you can see it in the camera. I don't know if it's gonna. You can kind of see. There you go. See that cool texture there? That's from the salt absorbing the water. And now you're not going to take the salt off. You're going to leave it on and you're going to let your whole page dry like this. And now we're going to try a little bit of the rubbing alcohol.
Is it like the tracing names?
I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to dip it into the rubbing alcohol. And I'm very gently going to tap it. And you'll see where the rubbing alcohol hits your paper, there are little dots of white. And I will tell you, I didn't experiment with this one on the cardstock. The rubbing alcohol works a lot better on thicker paper. It's not showing up quite as well here on the cardstock as it did. It does when you get it into a cut or something, doesn't it? But let's see if you can see. I'm going to hold it up here if you can. You can see these little dots. They look almost gray. It's going to look way cooler in person. And again, if you have watercolor paper, this is going to look awesome. All right, so now the deal is you have to wait for this to dry. This is the hardest part. And then when you are sure that it's all dry, you can start peeling off your tape. Mine is not quite dry yet. So I'm afraid if I peel the tape off, it's not... I'm going to show you one section of mine where it's starting to dry so that you can see. I'm really gently pulling the tape really slowly and working my way around the letter, putting my extra pieces of tape to the side, and I'm pulling from as close to the paper as I can. Like I keep moving my finger to be pulling the tape up really slowly close to the paper here. All right.
I wish I was done.
I'm going to hold this up now because I don't think it's too drippy. There, you can see my V in my word love. Awesome. I will post a picture of this when it's dry and I can peel the rest of the tape off. I can't wait to see what words you choose that make you happy. And yeah, we're excited for the rest of the week. We have some great stuff planned with watercolor paints this week, and we can't wait to share it with you. Yeah, here you go. And tomorrow, just FYI, you will need a straw. Okay? All right, we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Mama,
thanks for joining us.
I'm almost done.
We'll take a picture and show them, because with the salt on it, you have to leave it flat. Okay? They can see. See how they can see in the picture? Right there. All right, you can say bye, everybody. Bye, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.